Welcome to a meeting of your Planning Commission, the official local planning agency for the cities of Tampa, Temple Terrace, Plant City, and unincorporated Hillsborough County. The Planning Commission provides innovative leadership and long-range vision that contributes to the creation of a thriving, prosperous community that offers opportunity, fairness, and choice in how we live, move, learn, work, and play. For more information about the Planning Commission, please call 813-272-5940. Follow us on social media or visit our website at planhillsborough.org.
Welcome to the April 8th, 2019 public hearing of the Hillsborough County Planning Commission on Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan Amendments. We thank you for attending this meeting. Your comments and participation are encouraged. If you will, please sign the register at the rear of the room and turn off any devices that may be a distraction. If you wish to address the Commission on a specific amendment, we ask that you please complete the appropriate public comment sign-in sheet at the back of the room. When addressing the Commission, please begin with your name, address, and speak directly into the microphone. For those of you who are not familiar with our process, the meeting will be conducted as follows. The agenda item will be introduced. Staff will give their presentation with a 15-minute time limit. The applicant will be given an opportunity to make a presentation with a 15-minute time limit. Following presentations, members of the public may address the Planning Commission when recognized by the chairman. Public comment will be heard for 3 minutes per person. The applicant will be afforded a 3-minute period for rebuttal or response. Planning commissioners will then ask questions. Public comment will be closed. Then upon a motion, second, and discussion, a vote will be taken. Roll call, please.
Good evening, Powell. Here. Dix. Here. Green. Present. Joseph. Here. Kress. Here. Marino. Here. Willman. Here. Thrower.
Here.
Wilds. Dickerson.
Here.
Rodriguez. Dowdy. Here. Thank you. You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. We are going to move right into the first and only Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan Amendment, 18-08.
Mark Hetson, Planning Commission staff. Commissioners, if you recall, last month we presented 3 Temple Terrace plan amendments, and this one was continued until this meeting at the bequest of the applicant. It is Temple Terrace CPA 1808. You can see by the locator map, it's located in North Plant City. It's actually part of a voluntary annexation process. You can see the other 3 plan amendments with the red stars that were reviewed by you and recommendations provided at last month's meeting. In general, the location is south of East Telecom Parkway, east of Hollow Stump Road, north of the Hillsborough River, and west of Morse Bridge Road. This is a little bit close-up aerial of the actual site that's being annexed. It's part of a parent parcel. The whole parcel is not being annexed in because it would not meet the statutory requirements of it would create an enclave. So the applicant is bringing about 35.5 acres into Temple Terrace. You can see the general development pattern around this area. Mostly to the east and somewhat to the north is Research Corporate Park. There is a single-family detached neighborhood to the north as well. Also, there are smaller neighborhoods also to the north, but south of East Telecom Parkway, and also abutting the Hillsborough River at the end of Hollow Stump Road. By way of a little bit of background for this plan amendment, it is privately initiated. I've already mentioned it's part of a voluntary annexation. It's going through the processes of Temple Terrace. It is over 10 acres, so it will be subject to state and regional review. It is approximately 35.26 acres. The property currently has entitlements on it that equate to Hillsborough County Community Mixed Use 12, and the applicant is asking for Temple Terrace Urban Mixed Use 20. I've taken a few pictures of the site to give you a little bit of flavor and character of the area. This is the most eastern parcel that is being processed for annexation, and I'm looking south at the parcel that's affected. This is the central area. Again, I'm looking south from East Telecom Parkway. And this is the western portion of the property that is petitioned to come into Temple Terrace. and I am looking east from Hollow Stump Road. Since I spoke about East Telecom Parkway a couple times, I thought it'd be good to give you a shot of what that facility looks like. It's a two-lane facility. You can see there's a sidewalk on the northern side. There is some buffering already existing with some fencing that separates the neighborhood to the north from this roadway facility. This shows you the neighborhood to the north, Hidden Oaks, behind the fence, again abutting East Telecom Parkway. As I mentioned, there are some research corporate park uses both to the east and to the north. This is just one such example. It's owned by Baycare Health Systems. This is Hollow Stump Road, which I've mentioned a few times already, looking south and showing some of the residents that currently exist on that road. There is also another road up in the northwestern portion abutting the property, Raphorn Drive, and this is just an example of one of the homes on that roadway. So here's the future land use map as it stands today. The mauve color represents the Hillsborough County Residential Community Mixed Use 12. The salmon color represents Temple Terrace Research Corporate Park. The lavender color to the north is the Temple Terrace Urban Mixed Use 20, which of course is what the applicant has applied for, similar to the land uses that already exist north of Temple Terrace Parkway, Telecom Parkway. And south of the river, you can see the brown color is Residential 18 in Temple Terrace. And if this plan amendment was approved by Temple Terrace City Council, it would change to the lavender color that you see already to the north of the Temple Terrace Urban Mixed Use 20. What are the implications of this being approved? As I mentioned, there's already quite a bit of entitlements on the property already. Could have about 423 dwelling units built on the property. If this plan amendment was approved, it would increase to 705. Both those plan categories do allow for the consideration of commercial and industrial uses. However, I would say under neither plan, nor the counties nor Temple Terraces, does not meet locational criteria, so we feel that that would be greatly diminished. And therefore, staff's analysis focused on the 705 dwelling units. And of course, the applicant is here tonight and can expound on that, but that is the type of development they are looking for, the residential uses. Our staff did review this plan amendment per the Imagine 2040 Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan. And particularly, we look at policies about concerning future land use, neighborhood conservation, community development, multimodal corridors and major activity centers, complete streets. And of course, the entire policies are in your packet. Growth management, citywide redevelopment strategies, the provision of public facilities, annexations, and housing. And we felt that it was consistent with all those policies. Also, we feel that this is within character of the area and the vision that Temple Terrace has for the area being developed. Also, this plan category will require that the development goes under the plan development rezoning process. And as part of that process, the residential homes that abut this will be buffered with landscaping and fencing, et cetera, to ensure that they are compatible with these new uses once introduced. With that, staff does recommend the Planning Commission recommend that TTCPA 1808 be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Imagine 2040 Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan, and to forward this recommendation to Temple Terrace City Council. I would also note that future meetings, this will go in front of the Temple Terrace City Council on May 7th and also on May 21st. As it is a regular scale plan amendment, the City Council will direct us that time if they wish us to transmit it to DEO. And if that does take place, we would do so, and it would come back to Temple Terrace City Council for potential adoption in the month of July. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Does the applicant want to speak on this item?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Madam Director, and those of the dais. I believe that Mr. Hudson has done an excellent job of putting together the report. I don't know that I can add anything in particular to it, but I can certainly answer any questions. There are a couple of folks here I know who want to speak on this as well, and so if it would, it's acceptable to the chair, I'd reserve my time and come back up to the podium.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry,
Okay.
Michael Brooks, 100 North Tampa Street, Suite 3575, Tampa 33602.
Okay, we are actually going to get the sign-in sheets, but if there are those who would like to step forward to speak under this item, please come forward, state your name and address. Anyone who wants to speak under this, under public comment, you can come forward and state your name and address. Nope. Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Kathleen Condon. I'm at 7210 Rappahorn Drive, which we've been hearing a lot of stories and a lot of dissension about what the impact of this project will involve. We were not involved in the Baycare property being developed, and we have suffered financial loss as well as valuable resources of even getting out of our front door. I can't imagine what it would be like fighting 704 more families for a right to go out your front door. But I guess we're going to have to see that. I represent the owner of the property, Mr. Shields. Mr. Shields is here. He won't be speaking at this time. He has a hearing disability. He's asked me to forward my thoughts. Not all change is progress. He's been there 41 years, a short time to some of the residents, but he would like to remain there in his home. Homes are not brick and mortar. There's a lot that goes into them. Finances are one thing, but he's lost a lot with Baycare. And he's been losing a lot even with the premise of another project so close by. And he's about done. And I will like you all to take thought that progress is one thing, but it's not all. That change doesn't come out of the change that you're proposing. We've seen the changes since Baycare, and we're not happy with them. And we haven't been, but they were forced upon us. And we don't know if we can take any more changes. We're not being duly represented at this meeting if you don't take a moment to think how it affects the individual next to the imagined plans 40 years from now when we're gone. We can't pay for it. It'll be on somebody else's bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. Would the applicant like to speak again?
Yes, Mr. Chair. We have spoken to Mr. Shields, to his caretaker, and I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Kathleen, yes. And my client has actually been out to the property and met with him in their home. Let me speak to the density issue. I know that for planning purposes, of course, when you're asking for a land use change, at this stage, you have to assume the greatest density. You can tell from just the geometry of this site and the uplands and the configuration of the wetlands that this is going to require a creative layout to avoid wetland impacts, and we don't expect to achieve anything near 705 units. With that said, we don't know exactly what the layout will be, but when we began having initial meetings with the city of Temple Terrace, the initial suggestions were the UMU 20 to the north of the property on the other side of Telecom. It was relayed to us was the vision that fit in with our plans in that it provided flexibility. Of course, the things that actually, let me speak. Kathleen also, at the last meeting, was very concerned that this application included an annexation of the properties on Rappahorn. It does not. Obviously, they're not part of our petition, and we don't have the authority to do that. We are trying to avoid an enclave, of course, but I think the city of Temple Terrace at some point envisions that all of this remaining land in this area and then south of the river that's in the county will become part of the city. So we don't have any intention to dislocate Mr. Shields from his property, and a lot of the issues that we have talked about with regard to compatibility. I mean, those are things obviously that are going to come up in the permitting stage. The land use category, similar to the county land use category, requires for mixed use land use categories that you do a planned development. And we fully expect that these folks will be represented at those hearings, and we will be respectful of sensitivities to the fact that many of these lots were created, many of them are non-conforming, but nonetheless they were created in the 1950s and folks have lived there for a long time. But this is adjacent to Tampa Telecom Park, and obviously this is an area that has been long planned, envisioned for this type of use. If you are up there during the morning time, you'll see a lot of people walking along the sidewalks, going to the businesses, whether it be the Verizon Center or the Baycare Center. There are UT students that live in this area, and so we think that this is an appropriate request for this location. In a perfect world, we would be bringing the entire parcel in and doing a land use change on the entire tract. We know, obviously, it abuts the Hillsborough River. It is an extremely beautiful piece of property down there, but the uplands are up towards Telecom Parkway, and that's where the development will be concentrated, of course. So if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Willman?
I have a question for, I don't know, staff probably would be more appropriate to answer. Mark, I see on the future land use map there's environmentally sensitive areas overlapping the site. Can you just explain, and we had talked about this before, but can you just, for everyone's benefit, explain how that works with, kind of relates to the wetland issue, but.
Well, those are jurisdictional wetlands. They are bringing those into the city, at least some of those. Some of them will remain in unincorporated county. They will be subject to the rules and regulations of both the Environmental Protection Commission of Hillsborough County and also the city of Temple Terrace, so they will be protected from development. There is opportunities to gain some credits for those wetland areas to actually build on the uplands with more density. And there's a formula that goes with that. That's part of the Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan. When the PD is developed, our staff will be looking at to be sure it complies with the overall required density of the urban mixed use 20. But there is some opportunities to gain some of the density that are in the wetlands and bring those forward to the uplands. But the bottom line is those jurisdictional wetlands will be protected by not only the rules of EPC, but also of Temple Terrace.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Dix?
Mark, before you leave, why would not the entire piece of property be annexed into the city, even down by the river? And where are the potential enclaves that you were talking about?
I don't know if we have the best map for this. The area to the south of this area, that brown area, that is already in Temple Terrace. I believe that's called Fisherman's Landing. The areas to the east is Telecom Park, which is the salmon color. That's already in Temple Terrace. So if you brought the whole parcel in, what you see there at the very corner on the opposite side, well, even on both sides of the river, are lands that would remain in unincorporated county. And they would be completely encircled by that point, and therefore create that enclave. This is not the best map. If we could zoom out a little bit, it'd probably become more clear. But it's predominantly as they're trying to keep open that area that is on the lower left part of this slide, because some of those lands, homes both on the north and the south side of the river will remain in unincorporated county.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Commissioner Powell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The single-family homes, they're just to the north there. Have any of those been asked if they wanted to be a part of the annexation?
I will ask the applicant, or there's also a Temple Terrace rep. They may be able to express any contact they've had. I've had no contact with those owners, but they may have.
I'm not aware that we have asked any of them to annex along with us, although I will say that in the course of platting the property, which was a request so that we could identify the tracts that were being annexed in by folio numbers, we did identify, county staff, that there were non-conforming lots, most of which were legal, a couple of which were not legal. And we've actually worked out a solution for all of those. One of those solutions is actually to buy one of the properties and actually include it and bring it into the annexation. But as you have two of the residents here, my sense from being in the area is that they're not excited about being annexed and are not jumping on the train.
Thank you.
Commissioner Dix?
I just didn't understand what that meant about one of the lots was legal and one of the lots was not.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
I just didn't understand what you said about one of those lots was not legal and one was. I wouldn't understand what you were saying.
There are on Rappahannock 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are 9 lots on Rappahannock, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lots down by the river. Right. One of the lots on Rappahannock is non-conforming, and it is not legally non-conforming. That lot, we've actually had to go put it under contract in order to finish the platting process. There is another lot down by the river that is also not legally conforming, and we've met with county staff, and we're actually going to merge that with a legally conforming lot, thereby decreasing the nonconformity, and trying to basically make it better than it was, the existing condition.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, no further questions. Someone yep, Commissioner Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion that we find Temple Terrace plan amendment, comp plan amendment 18-08 consistent with the Imagine 2040 Temple Terrace comprehensive plan and forwarded on to Temple Terrace City Council.
Got a motion by Commissioner Green. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Marino. Any further discussion before we vote? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay. We are going to adjourn this public hearing and move right into the Hillsborough County public hearing. So, I'll start the reading. Give them a second to walk in. Okay, we'll begin the Hillsborough County public hearing in a second. Welcome to the April 8th, 2019 public hearing of the Planning Commission on Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan Amendments. We thank you for attending our meeting. Your comments and participation are encouraged. If you will, please sign the register at the rear of the room and turn off any devices that may be a distraction. If you wish to address the commission on a specific amendment, we ask that you please complete the appropriate public comment sign-in sheet at the back of the room. When addressing the commission, please begin with your name, address, and speak directly into the microphone. For those of you who are not familiar with our process, the meeting will be conducted as follows. The agenda item will be introduced. Staff will give their presentation with a 15-minute time limit. The applicant will be given the opportunity to make a presentation with a 15-minute time limit. Following presentations, members of the public may address the Planning Commission when recognized by the chairman. Public comment will be heard for 3 minutes per person. The applicant will be afforded a 3-minute period for rebuttal or response. Planning commissioners will then ask questions. Public comment will be closed. Then upon a motion, second, and discussion, a vote will be taken. Roll call, please.
Good evening, Powell. Here. Dix. Here. Green. Present. Joseph. Here. Kress. Here. Marino. Here. Willman. Here. Thrower.
Here.
Wilds. Dickerson.
Here.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Dowdy. Here. Thank you. You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. We are going to move right into Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan Amendment 18-14.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Will Augustine, Planning Commission staff. The next agenda item before you is Hillsborough County's Comprehensive Plan Amendment 1814. Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan Amendment 1814 is located just south of Plant City, along the west side of Sam Aston Road, and just north of Trapnell Road. The subject site is a privately initiated map amendment in rural eastern Hillsborough County, which is approximately 5.3 acres in size. The site is currently an existing mobile home park, which was approved for 24 units in 1993. The blue line above the subject site is the jurisdictional boundary of the city of Plant City. The aerial shows that the surrounding area is predominantly rural with single-family homes on large plots. The land use of Residential 1 predominate the area. There are enclaves to the southeast, which predate the comprehensive plan. The subject property is north of Trapnell-Sam Aston Road intersection. Mud Lake Road is to the west, and Highway 39 is to the east. The subject site has an adopted Residential 2 land use classification. It was given to recognize the existing development on the site with the creation of the comprehensive plan. The adopted land use is used to recognize the underlying zoning. The blue shaded public area to the south is Trapnell Elementary School. Residential 1 is the predominant land use of the surrounding properties. The white designated area to the northeast is the city of Plant City. The land use here is Residential 4 and will be served by utilities in the future. The applicant is requesting a Residential 6 land use classification change. The currently adopted land use classification of Residential 2 allows a maximum of 10 dwelling units on a 5.3 acre site. The suburban scale neighborhood commercial, office, or multi-purpose projects are limited to 110,000 square feet or a floor area ratio of 0.25. With a land use change to Residential 6, the subject site would have a potential build-out of up to 31 dwelling units. Suburban scale neighborhood commercial, office, or multi-purpose projects are limited to 175,000 square feet or floor area ratio of 0.25. This site does not qualify for locational criteria. However, the applicant can request a waiver. In January of 1993, the BOCC approved the PDH zoning district for this mobile home site. The approval stipulates that the maximum density for any new development must not exceed the land use plan category, that the existing development is recognized as legal multifamily lot of record, and that the mobile home park is limited to the originally approved 24 units. This is a view showing the current use of the property looking west from Sam Aston Road. This is a view looking northeast in front of the subject property along Sam Aston Road. This is a photograph of the view along Trapnell Road looking north towards the subject property. Excuse me, this is a photograph of a view along Trapnell Road looking northwest. There are two important agency comments concerning this plan amendment. The first from Hillsborough County Transportation noted that currently there is sufficient capacity along Trapnell Road through 2040. The second from the School District of Hillsborough County. It reports that Trapnell Elementary is expected to be over capacity with increase in density. The Planning Commission staff have determined that the request for a land use change to residential 6 is not consistent with the following language, policies, and objective from the county's future land use element, which is address the rural area. The rural area is identified as a land use that typically has densities of 1 dwelling per 5 acres or less in intense designations. There is to be no new extensions of public water or sanitary sewer service into the rural area. Additionally, new development is not permitted to expand into areas designated with lower land use densities. The purpose of the rural growth management strategy is to, 1, control urban sprawl, 2, create distinctive forms between long-range urban and rural communities, and 3, define those urban communities using an urban service area that establishes the boundary of urban growth. Objective 4 of the future land use element further clarifies the rural area to provide long-term land-intensive agricultural uses and large lot, low-density rural residential uses. Policy 4.1 designates rural area densities on the future land use map as being no higher than 1 dwelling use per 5 acres. Policy 30.6 recognizes that agriculture and agricultural support uses are the preferred use in rural areas. Finally, the Planning Commission staff finds Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan Amendment 1814 inconsistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County and recommends this finding be forwarded to the Board of County Commissioners. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Would the applicant like to speak on this item?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members and staff. Todd Pressman, 200 2nd Avenue South in St. Petersburg, Florida. I'm here for CPA 18-14, and we appreciate the staff comments, but there is another side to the story of what's proposed before you. This site is located way outside in a very intensive agriculture area. Just the photo alone, you can see it's virtually surrounded by agriculture uses. A little closer shot, and that's what this little mobile home park does. It provides support for the massive areas of agriculture uses in this part of the county. This is not an RV resort as described in the staff report. This is a very simple mobile home park that is at capacity and provides housing for exclusively for people who work with the agriculture industry. It's just as simple as that. This is not any kind of RV resort of any kind. It's not pretty. It's nothing super special, but it's home, and it acts as an agricultural support use. So future land use amendment that's been presented, it's Res 2 now. But what's not indicated in your staff report and was kind of glossed over a bit in the presentation today is that the site is grandfathered at 24 units. So when you read your report and it tells you there's only 11 units here, that's not correct. There's 24 units. We're seeking to go to 31. The math is very simple. We're only seeking an increase of 7 units. So I think that's very important. That's very divergent from what the staff has presented to you in the staff report, but the math is very clear. 24 units are permissible here. And that's indicated in the existing PD plan, 24 mobile home lots, and included in the conditions as well. That's not being contested. And there's a couple more shots of the mobile home park. Anita's here. She's the property manager if you have any specific questions. So these are tenants who are existing, working with affordable housing, what's called low and low housing for farm workers or families in crisis. What's really interesting, Mr. Chairman and board members, and this is critical for you in the review of this case, is that your staff mentioned a few policies on the future land use element, but they missed not just a few policies or a few pages, they missed an entire chapter of the comprehensive plan, 120 pages of the housing portion of the comprehensive plan. And that's what drives this request. In fact, when I spoke with the principal planner at the Affordable Housing Services Department for Hillsborough County, she sent me this email, good luck in your endeavors. I'm glad we're all working toward the same thing, the goal of increasing affordable housing. And the housing chapter clearly, and I'll go through those policies with you, say we need to have bonuses, we need to have more of these, we need to have multiple uses. You can have bonuses of multiple what the land use category is for affordable housing. So the County Comprehensive Plan for Housing issue. The agriculture industry in Hillsborough County employs a substantial number of farm workers for the many crops grown. There are 2 critical housing issues facing the sector. The first one is the need for affordable, attainable housing that is safe, decent, sanitary, and structurally sound. That's what this little park provides. County Comprehensive Plan, Policy 1.6.3. The county shall implement land development regulations that provide incentives for the development of migrant farm worker housing. That is precisely and exactly what this application seeks. Objective 3.6, density intensity bonuses for affordable housing. Density bonuses will be utilized as an incentive to encourage the development of more affordable housing. These density bonuses are outlined below, and there's a table that provides it. So when the staff tells you, well, we have limits of rural density, they haven't told you an entire chapter of the comprehensive plan that says we need to provide incentives for these. We're going to give you bonuses of density. When the staff tells you these higher densities should be only inside or not outside the urban service area, this chapter tells you no, this is what we want in this area. We want to support agriculture, which is a major industry of Hillsborough County. County Comprehensive Plan, Policy 1.3.7. The county shall designate future land use categories with density bonuses that will encourage the development of affordable and attainable housing for low, and moderate income folks. I could give you more policies. I've just given you some of the more intensive ones that apply to this and to this case. And make no mistake about it, on the comprehensive plan, mobile homes are an affordable and attainable housing option for low and moderate income persons. Staff comments, as I've indicated to you, they did not present these conflicts between some of the policies they've given you and what I presented to you, which is an entire chapter of the housing code, or excuse me, of the comprehensive plan. Adding 7 units, and that's the math, adding 7 units is not adding the sprawl. It falls within the incentives and the bonuses under the comp plan. Your staff referred to objective number 4 about densities in the rural area. This is a support function. It is a support use of the agriculture industry. Without these people working, the agriculture industry would not be able to sustain itself. In regard to infrastructure, travel, and schools, this was sent out as an increase from 11 units to 31, which is not correct. That is misinformation, unintentional misinformation that went to the different agencies. In regard to the one school referred, if you read a little more detail in your report, it indicates in Trapple Elementary School they would just need to change the configuration of their zone. That was the response in your report. So in that regard, all the infrastructure does meet this land use, this future land use amendment. So in summary, this is a very small increase over what's allowed today. It meets many comp plan policies for this exact type use. Staff, in our opinion, only presented half the picture, left out the entire comp plan chapter. It does meet a critical and directed need in the county. We received positive comments from the County Affordable Housing Office, and to date, we've received no opposition from the public. So with that, we appreciate your attention and we appreciate your consideration. We'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any public comment under this item? Okay, no public comment. Any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Powell?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. You mentioned that there are inconsistencies in the report, and I would like to know if, like, what staff has to say about that and whether or not, that's, true.
Well, may I clarify that?
Yes.
What I was referring to is inconsistencies in the effect of some policies the staff presented in the future land use portion, and we presented today in the housing. So just so we're clear, what I'm indicating, or for example, staff said there's a limit on densities in the rural areas under future land use section, but under the housing section, affordable housing can receive has incentives and bonuses for higher densities. That's an inconsistency. You only heard one side of the story. You didn't hear the other side of the story.
So I'd be happy to respond to that. One, there were a couple of things that we did find that were incorrect in our staff report that we sent those out, an updated report on Friday, and then highlighted them and strike through underline that we sent out today. I do not think that staff reviewed this as an RV park, as the applicant has asserted. What the end use of the property is never something that we take into account. We look at the entire scope of what the land use category could allow. So whether or not they said at some point in a meeting with us they wanted an RV park, a mobile home park, single family homes, it doesn't matter. Right. It's 6 units per acre, and that's what we're looking at. Secondly, is with regards to the issue of affordable housing, the comprehensive plan does have a number of policies, as Mr. Pressman correctly characterized, encouraging affordable housing and density bonuses. Most of that is directed inside the urban service area where there are existing services and ability to get to jobs. That's where those densities are focused. There is a provision in the future land use element available for a density bonus of up to 8 units per acre for farm worker housing. And if the applicant wanted to commit to farm worker housing to support the agricultural community, that density bonus would be available to them today, and they wouldn't need a plan amendment. So that type of affordable housing to specifically address the agricultural community is addressed in its policy 20.7 of the future land use element. So I do believe staff looked at everything and considered it, in my opinion, accurately. Thank you.
So I just have another question. So the current approvals are for 10 units, but there's 24 that are there now. So is that just because it's grandfathered in, or
Yes.
was that just like non-conforming use because it's just been like that for
It's
forever?
it's a legal non-conforming use, I believe, but Matt from the county can address that.
Hi, Matt Lewis, Executive Planner with Hillsborough County Public Works. Yes, what happened was during the zoning conformance process in 1993, this was seen as an existing mobile home park that was non-conforming with regard to density. So the PD established over it said that you have a mobile home park. If you want to change use, you have to come into conformance with the plan, but as long as you have mobile homes on the property, you can have 24 of them.
Thank you.
Oh, and the affordable housing thing that Melissa mentioned is also in the Land Development Code in section 61139.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rodriguez? Nope, nope. Oh.
Nope.
Dixon, okay. Commissioner Dix?
So I don't know who to address this to, so I'll just address it to our executive director. So the applicant said that it's really not a request to go from 10 to 31, it's to go from 24 to 31. And if I understand it correctly, he's basing his request not on what's currently permissible, but just what happens to be out there. That is akin to saying if we allotted 31, then somebody could make the argument that you should be able to have 62 or 65 units on that property under the same type of density that it currently has. So just because it is a non-conforming use at this point should not imply necessarily that we should change the number to such a dramatic number which has been quantified by the applicant as to be de minimis. Am I correct on that?
That is how staff viewed it, was that just as Mr. Lewis said, while they're approved for keeping the mobile home park the way that it is, if they were to change their use, they would have to come back in compliance with the plan,
Right.
which would take them back to the 10 units per acre. So that is how we looked at it.
But currently, the way that the plan reads now, there should only be 11 units out there.
Right. Yes.
Got it. Thanks.
Any other questions? Someone like to make a motion? Commissioner Powell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion that we find Hillsborough County Plan Amendment HECPA 1814 inconsistent with the future Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan.
You got a motion by Commissioner Powell. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Got a second by Commissioner Kress. Any further discussion before we vote? All in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, we are going to move on to our last comprehensive plan amendment, Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan Amendment 18-20.
Good evening, Krista Kelly, Planning Commission staff. I'm presenting Comprehensive Plan 1820. This is a 9.4 acre site in the northwest portion of the county. It's a privately initiated map amendment. The site fronts on the south side of Lutz Lake Fern Road and is west of and fronts on Sun Lake Boulevard to the west. On the east side of its property. The site's in the urban service area and within the boundary of the Lutz Community Plan. To provide context, the site is outlined in pink, and you can see there's a mixture of housing types. The site itself, the project area, is primarily agricultural in character. It consists of two parcels. The parcel in the northeast corner does have a home located on it. To the west of the site, there are homes on large lots. To the north, it becomes suburbanized. There is a civic lodge use at the intersection of Sun Lake and Lutz Lake Fern Road. And then further to the south, it becomes a little more intense with an office park. This is the adopted future land use map. Currently, the site's designated residential 1, as is our properties to the west. There's also a mixture of residential 2 and residential 4 to the west and residential 4 to the east. We extended the purview of this amendment to also reflect activity that is occurring and has been occurring over time. This is Gerasi Road and Del Mabry. This is residential 9, so it's a little bit more intense. The other two parcels just to the north of it were amended in 2015 and 2017 from residential 1 to residential 4. This is a proposed amendment site proposing residential 6. It's kind of a mid-range density between the residential 4, residential 2, and then the residential 9 to the south. The impact of this change would introduce 47 additional dwelling units for a total of 56 dwelling units. The maximum square footage allowable, because the site does meet locational criteria, currently is 30,000 square feet. It would increase to 102,000 square feet. Staff reviewed it for consistency and finds that it encourages high density in the urban service area and maximizes capital investments. It promotes additional infill development in appropriate areas and allows for comparable and compatible uses similar to the surrounding area. And this is consistent with the policies listed in your staff report. It's distributed for agency review. One notable comment was from the school district, noting that Martinez Middle School and Steinbrenner High School do not have adequate capacity at this time based on this proposed development. Based on these findings, Planning Commission staff recommends that CPA 1820 be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the future of Hillsborough's comprehensive plan, and forwards this recommendation. The Planning Commission forward this recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about this.
Okay, thank you. Would the applicant like to speak on this item?
Good evening. Planning Commission, Mr. Chairman, staff, Michael Horner, 14502 North Dale Mabry Highway, Tampa 33618, representing the owner and the applicant who's owned this property since 1978, Mr. Michael Almerico and his mother Blanche Almerico, who's no longer residing in that house. Family members are. She now resides in a skilled nursing facility in the neighborhood. She's 96 years old, so go mom. We have worked closely with staff over the years, and we appreciate Krista's report. When I say years, I mean this has been going on for a number of years. It was gone through a charter school approval, a rather contentious approval process that took place in 2005. We filed, I was the agent of that request. We filed for 1,020 K through 8 charter school children, students. It was approved for 870. A lot of traffic issues. The hearing officer ultimately ruled in our favor. Unfortunately, because of the intersection improvements required on this site, almost to $1 million for all the left turn, right turn, decel, accel, modifications, full dual left turn lanes on Sun Lake Boulevard. That became cost prohibitive. Sun Lake Academy is now on the east side of North Dale Mabry Highway. This site lost out, but the neighbors are very happy. So I guess at the end of the day, I advise my client at Res 1, you're just not going to have any opportunity for reasonable development opportunities on this site. We then entertained a proposal for an assisted living facility. And in the Land Development Code, there is a provision that allows for bed density conversions. And the only way that made sense on this skilled nursing facility that we're proposing, it's formally under contract, we'll be filing PD rezoning shortly, with an assisted living facility component, is to have the Res 6. My client does not want to develop townhomes or condos or apartments. I realize we're here in a venue that allows the Res 6, and I can't make that commitment to you, and you have every right to scrutinize the Res 6. I'm just giving you our thought process behind that decision making as to why we need the Res 6. My client has to bring in public water and sewer. We are in the urban service area, so uniquely in the Lutz area, you have most of the Lutz community plan that governs the rural service area. Res 2, Res 1, we are a little different because we have Res 1, but we are in the urban service area. Therefore, all the community design element provisions of the Lutz community plan do not transfer over to this site. It's also in the urban service area, which means if we did 8 single-family homes under the existing Res 1, we would have to bring in public water and sewer and connect all those homes to water and sewer, which would be cost prohibitive. Surrounding land uses, board members, we have a fraternal organization at the northwest quadrant, which takes up 4 or 5 lots. We have the Hannah Bartoletta office building to the northeast corner of this intersection. To the southeast, there's a wetland, and then we have an office park that I represented years ago that is in the CN zoning district, which means any of those buildings could be converted for retail uses. To the south, we have the Equestrian Ventures facility. Beautiful parcel. Ruth Gimbel has owned that for a number of years. We initially reached out to her some time ago, earlier this year. She indicated she's not opposed, but did not want to become part of our plan amendment process. She does not have specific plans. I believe she may put it on the market. My guess is that Res 1 will be changing shortly as well. So that would allow a connectivity to the Jurassic Corridor, which is directly southwest and abutting, north and abutting the Res 9 plan amendment, which was approved in 2005. That has access window to Dale Mabry Highway as well as to Jurassic Road. This parcel, the 9.4 acres, which is 2 parcels, which Krista noted, is directly at the intersection. We have a 50-foot right-of-way to Lutz Lake Fern Road, and we have frontage along the western portion of Sun Lake Boulevard, which is a divided major collector roadway. Sun Lake Boulevard, as you know, goes all the way up to Pasco County, connects major developments, and goes to State Road 54. So we feel our hands were somewhat tied, but I wanted to pare it down to what that Res 6 versus the Res 4 actually means. We are abutting only in a platted subdivision to the west, which is Appian Way, which is the Res 3 in the comp plan, I believe. They have 30-acre lots. We only abut 2.5 lots, 3 on that western side. We do dog ear around a couple parcels on Lutz Lake Fern Road. Some years ago, we reached out and tried to bring them in. Contracts couldn't be achieved, and our client went on his own and therefore has his own contract purchase agreement for the assisted living facility. But we still want to be good neighbors. My client has to go through an entire PD rezoning process. It has to be legally binding. It's a whole new venue. Site plan review, comments, setback, buffering, landscaping, matrix tables, the whole 9 yards. But just from an element of comparison, if a development was developed in Res 4 for single family, that would be a Euclidean district of RSC 4. If it was in the Res 6, the comparable district would be RSC 6. The difference between the RSC 6 and the RSC 4 district is 5 feet. 70 feet versus 75. So the point I'm making is even at the lower range, you would only benefit because the true measure of impact is not what you're abutting on the long side, it's what is directly next to you. And those lots would be fronting for only an additional 5 feet. We would still be capped on the number of units. On the ALF, there's a density conversion, and we have a site plan that we've prepared. We'll file that with staff. This is not a binding review, but we do have a plan for an assisted living facility that has a centralized location, lots of buffering and setbacks and retention ponds, because the site does have a high water table. No wetlands, but it does have a high water table. We think this is an appropriate transition. I looked at the trips from our detailed traffic study on the charter school, and we had 700, I don't want to misquote, 788 AM trips in the peak hour, and then 522 PM trips in the evening hours. I then looked at the recent traffic numbers in the backup report. The entire peak hour directional volume was about 770 trips. So you realize the disproportionality of just that charter school. And now I kind of get why all the neighbors were strongly opposed to it. So I like to view this as coming back down the scale of intensity, even though we're asking for an increase in the density. We need that density. If we had the Res 4 comp plan, we would be under 200 beds. Right now, we're proposing a mix of the ALF and the assisted living skilled nursing component. We need to be over 207, thus the Res 6. But I think the Res 6 is justified by the staff findings, all of your goals, objectives, and policies. 16.1, 2, and 3 all talk about gradual transitions of intensity. There is no way staff is going to approve a neighborhood shopping center. So while it's approved technically for up to a consideration of 175,000 square feet, it's capped by the FAR at about 102,000 square feet. I don't see that happening anytime soon. They would be receptive and have recommended to us that they would be supporting a residential support use, which would be our proposed use. So we'd like to be here with all of the parcels with the equestrian ventures and do one unified CPA. That was a large-scale amendment. We couldn't do so. My client is only pursuing his property, which is under contract purchase agreement. We have talked to a few of the neighbors. One gentleman to the west in Appian Way, he's traveling out of the country. He reached me last week, said he would not be here. But he was strongly opposed to charter school, and he said that they would find this proposal a win-win and are very pleased. I reached out twice also to Mr. Michael White of the Lutz Civic Association. Did not receive a response back, which is a little surprising because we worked well together on that charter school. Not well together, but we communicated. And he has not yet responded, so maybe he's out of contact. So with that, I'd like to bring up my client, Mr. Almarico, just for 60 seconds, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Michael Almarico. Mother and father purchased the corner lot in 1974. And in 75, my father died. In 76, Mom built the house that is presently there. In 78 is when I purchased the land adjacent to that, to her. And at that time, you couldn't get 5 cars on Dale Mabry. It was 2-lane road, had the hill coming over Van Dyke. And it was just, it has just grown and blown up, and it is just absolutely beyond my expectations as far as progression. I mean, not progression, I mean progress. And it's just, we have entertained the county school, the charter school rather, and that was saddened that it went south because of the expense of the road improvements. I've had other people come and entertain and kick the tires, but everybody was afraid of this, or couldn't do anything with R1. They just adamant about this wasn't viable. So my request is the R6. It makes it, it's within the service area. I fought for that when they tried to deny that. And it doesn't make any sense. We got water and sewer running down Sun Lake Boulevard. And for us to not be able to tap into that, didn't make any viable sense. So I appreciate the support and consideration in this matter. Hopefully you guys can see your way through this. And I'm born and raised in Tampa. It's not somebody coming from New York and a fly-by-night turning something over. Okay, so just want to make it clear of that. Thank you.
Can you give your address? I'm not sure if I got it for the record.
My address, 15926 Cryan Wind Drive, okay. Tampa, Florida, 33624.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other public comment on this item? Please come. You can come forward and state your name and address.
John Doyle of Doyle McGrath Real Estate, 19005 North Dale Mabry, Lutz. And I'm here on behalf of the owners of the buildings in the office park at Sun Lakes and Dale Mabry. I believe it's the northwest corner there. And the concern and objection, if you will, of the building owners is that the park is used extensively by people using Sun Lake Boulevard to get to Dale Mabry, they cut through the office park to avoid waiting in line to get on to Dale Mabry. And if we have additional development right across the street, they feel that that would just intensify, and they would like the commission to consider the impact it would have on their park. And that's all.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Any other public comment?
I'm Jerry Odell, P.O. Box 7249, Wesley Chapel, Florida 33545. And I am actually the owner of the little spot right in the middle on the map. My son and his wife live in that home now. That house was built by my father back in early 70s. We moved in there. And currently the zoning is actually still remains an agricultural zoning, 1 unit per acre. And the house that's on the other side of that little thin pink strip is also an agricultural rating. And honestly, I'm not so much concerned in the zoning change. I mean, I have worked with Michael in trying to, negotiate some things together, and so I'm not totally averse to putting in the industry. The problem comes in is that my concerns are quite significant in the drainage from that area, in exactly how they're going to have ingress and egress from the facility. If they're planning on making that little thin strip of road off of Lutz Lake Fern, is there going to also be other access coming off of Sun Lake? Understanding that as it's planned right now is an assisted living facility. However, as a residential 6, that doesn't mean that you're going to be limited to, once the zoning changes, there's other options in case that falls through. So now we have an opportunity that there could be other types of dwellings put into that area. So when you're kind of stuck in the middle of all of those things, everything that happens on every side of you is going to be impacted. The map doesn't exactly show the whole distance, but pretty much everything that is on the south side of Lutz Lake Fern at that point is all 1 acre, at least 1 acre per, 1 house per acre, 1 dwelling per acre, except for that one little area that is a Res 4 or Res 3, where that backs onto the other part of their property. So the concern is that, if we're going to increase the land use capabilities, what kind of resources are going to be available? Being right there on Lutz Lake Fern, where the turn is to go on Sun Lake, it's a very high traffic area. It's also can be very dangerous because people go through there very quickly. Are you going to have an access going on the other side of that that's going to be impacted? There's also the issue with the expansion of Lutz Lake Fern Road, which has been delayed for years. So how is all of that going to impact the property? So I guess I'm out of time.
Yes, you are.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Would the applicant like to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could just put an overhead graphic. We appreciate the comments that traffic is the controlling issue on this parcel. It defeated the prior request, and my guess would be under current level of service, although there's sufficient capacity now, if you project 5 years, those level services change fairly quickly. My clients have been promised for years that the Lutz Lake Fern Road corridor is going to be improved shortly. They still have their letters, and they're getting yellow. The funds are not there. We see in the right-of-way maps. It's a busy intersection. It's signalized. It does have geometric improvements. But we would be limited, although we have mobility fees now and not concurrency application fees. So we would not be precluded, but the improvements would preclude any development of a significant trip generation. Which brings us down to and assisted living facility. And these are the two sites that we are surrounding. And we do have that 50-foot driveway. We only need 24 feet, so we would buffer that. But you can see how we're trying to centralize, and we would have access to Sun Lake. We would have access to Lutz Lake Fern. The yellow is the mom house, and probably use that for additional retention because we do have a high water table. Again, no wetlands, but we do have a high water table, so additional storage might be needed. So we appreciate those comments. This type of use would be a fraction of utilities, a fraction of the peak hour traffic, and a fraction of the impacts for utilities overall. I know I can't guarantee that to you, and this is on another forum for rezoning ultimately, but even under Res 6, we'd be limited to the 50 homes. They would still be required to have both access points, and that would carry through in any development plan. So I think it's reasonable, I think it's fair, and the only option that I see, that my client sees, is a win-win for the neighborhood and find a use that does not have those high disproportionate costs for traffic and also allow proximity to services, retail, office, Veterans Expressway, schools. So I think that's important. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Willman?
I have a question for the applicant. You had mentioned the ALF and could be skilled nursing or
both.
Both.
Yeah.
Have you applied with the agency for healthcare administration regarding beds, because there is another facility very close by, and I know they distribute those licenses based on geographic location. So have you already gotten any?
Our developer, who is a contract purchaser, has gone through that effort and therefore signed the contract based upon that. Otherwise, they would not have gone forward for a formal purchase contract. So yes,
there are
they have a
bed
reasonable
licenses.
expectation for those beds.
Bed licenses would be
particularly for the skilled nursing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. And then my other question is on the residents on Appian Way. In your conversations with them, was it clear that residential is an option as well as the ALF according to the land use plan category?
Yeah, we advised we could not guarantee that this hearing was not a rezoning hearing, but they were all interested, what are you doing? So since we were, and I spoke with Tony about this in the last month, but now that we had an actual contract purchase agreement signed and sealed, I felt comfortable in sharing those plans, and we made that public record. So yes, they actually said, are you be proposing townhomes or condos, which is similar to the development under the Res 9, which is the 2015 at Jurassic. But we're not proposing that. They're fine with the residential. They don't want the school. They would prefer not to have higher density attached units, but they're more happy to have an ALF.
I do have one more question, sorry.
Sure.
The Res 6 instead of Res 4, what is the reason why you couldn't live with Res 4?
Because the Res 4, when you combine the acres, since we have no wetlands, we get full density credit under the transfer of units. ALFs, if they are a common dining area, you get 5 beds per dwelling unit. So the 9.4, we are under the 200. My client has 120 ALF beds, but the skilled nursing facility would have 87 to 90, which puts us over the 207. And 194 is the Res 4 cap. Res 6 allows those additional units, which is critical for this project.
So in order for the ALF skilled nursing to be feasible,
it needed to be the Res 6.
200,
over 200.
Over 200 beds?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Any other questions? Someone like to make a motion?
I move that we find the future land use map designation change for Hillsborough County CPA 1820 from Res 1 to Res 6, consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for Unincorporated Hillsborough County, and forward this recommendation of Board of County Commissioners.
Okay, got a motion by Commissioner Marino. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Green. Is that right? Oh, Powell, Green. Second by Commissioner Green. Any further discussion before we vote? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? No? Okay, so the motion passes. I think it's 8-1, is it right? 8-1, with Commissioner Willman voting against. Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.